Everyone knows something about you that you do not know about yourself. Not a small thing, not a trivial observation, something fundamental, something that shapes every relationship you have, every choice you make, every pattern you repeat. They see it clearly, obviously, undeniably. They have conversations about it when you are not in the room. They exchange knowing glances when you do it again. They bite their tongues to avoid saying what they desperately want to tell you. And you have no idea. You walk through life completely blind to the one truth about yourself that is glaringly apparent to everyone else. This is not because you are stupid. This is not because you lack self-awareness. This is because you have built your entire identity around not seeing this truth. Because seeing it would mean dismantling who you think you are, and that feels like death. Carl Jung called this the psychological blind spot, the part of ourselves that is most visible to others and most invisible to ourselves. He discovered that we do not just hide parts of ourselves from the world, we hide parts of ourselves from ourselves. We push them into what he called the shadow, the repository of everything we cannot accept about who we are. And then we live in a strange dissociation where everyone around us sees our shadow clearly, comments on it, reacts to it, and we genuinely believe they are wrong, crazy, or projecting. We defend against their observations. We dismiss their feedback. We call them judgmental, biased, jealous, anything to avoid the devastating possibility that they are right, that they see something true about us that we have been refusing to see, that the person we think we are is not the person we actually are. And the gap between those two versions is destroying every relationship, every opportunity, every chance at genuine transformation. The truth everyone sees about you is not random. It is precise. It is the exact quality you have most vehemently rejected in yourself, the thing you judge most harshly in others, the behavior you swear you would never exhibit, the trait you built your identity in opposition to, and because you rejected it so completely, because you decided it was unacceptable, your psyche had no choice but to push it into shadow where it could not threaten your self-image. But pushing it into shadow did not eliminate it. It just made it unconscious. And what is unconscious does not go away. It acts. It influences. It runs your life from the background while you remain convinced it is not part of you. Everyone else sees it. They have always seen it. But you cannot. Because seeing it would require admitting you are not who you think you are. And that admission feels impossible. Today you are going to see the 4 truths that everyone sees about you except yourself. The control you deny while micromanaging every detail. The neediness you reject while constantly seeking validation. The arrogance you condemn while believing you are always right. And the victimhood you refuse while blaming everyone else for your circumstances. Look at these 4 blind spots. Not with defensiveness. Not with the immediate dismissal you have practiced for years, but with the brutal honesty required to finally see what everyone else has been seeing all along. Because one of these is yours. One of these is the truth you have been defending against your entire life. One of these is why your relationships keep failing in the same way, why you keep hitting the same obstacles, why people keep having the same reaction to you that you cannot understand. Jung taught that we cannot change what we cannot see, and we cannot see what we refuse to acknowledge. The truth everyone sees about you is not an attack. It is an invitation. An invitation to finally stop performing the version of yourself you think you are and start integrating the version of yourself you actually are. This will not be comfortable. This will not validate your self-image. This will not confirm that you are right and everyone else is wrong. This will do the opposite. This will show you why you are wrong about yourself, why your self-perception is not accurate, why the feedback you have been dismissing for years is actually the most valuable information you could receive. Because the truth everyone sees about you is the key to your transformation. It is the shadow material you must integrate to become whole. It is the blind spot you must illuminate to stop sabotaging yourself. It is the part of you that has been running your life while you insisted it did not exist. And it is time to finally, courageously see what they see. Not through their eyes, but through your willingness to consider that maybe, just maybe, they are not all wrong about you. Maybe they see something true, something you have been too terrified to face, something that, once acknowledged, will change everything. Make your choice. Which truth do you deny? And then stay with me. Because what you are about to discover will not feel good. It will not be easy. It will not confirm your innocence or justify your behavior. It will do something far more valuable. It will show you the truth. And truth, however painful, is the only foundation on which real growth can be built. The version of yourself you think you are is a lie, a carefully constructed performance designed to hide what you cannot accept, and everyone sees through it. Everyone except you. And it is time to stop being the last person to know who you actually are. If your soul recognized the control you deny, the truth that everyone sees you micromanaging, dominating, and needing everything to go your way, while you insist you are flexible and easygoing, you have revealed the blind spot that is destroying your relationships and your peace. Everyone around you knows you are controlling. They feel it, they experience it, they walk on eggshells trying not to trigger your need to manage every situation. But you do not see it. You genuinely believe you are adaptable, that you let others make decisions, that you are fine with however things unfold. And the gap between what you believe about yourself and what everyone experiences is creating profound disconnection, resentment, and the pattern where people either submit to your control or eventually leave. If you deny being controlling, this is your blind spot, and it is costing you everything. You developed this blind spot because somewhere in your story, control meant survival. Maybe you grew up in chaos where the only way to feel safe was to control your environment. Maybe you experienced powerlessness and vowed never to feel that vulnerable again. Maybe you watched someone lose control and decided that you would be different. You would always have everything managed, organized, perfect. So you became someone who needs control, who cannot tolerate uncertainty, who cannot let others lead, who cannot trust that things will work out without your constant intervention. But here is what happened. Control became so central to your survival that you could not afford to see it as a flaw. So you reframed it. You told yourself you are not controlling, you are just organized, not dominating, just thorough, not rigid, just particular. And you built an entire identity around being the responsible one, the capable one, the one who makes sure everything gets done right. And in that identity there is no room for being controlling. So you pushed it into shadow, and now you cannot see it, even when everyone else can. In Jungian terms, this is the shadow of the king or queen archetype, the part of the psyche that needs to rule, to decide, to have final say. In its healthy form, this archetype brings leadership and structure. In shadow, it becomes tyranny disguised as competence. If you deny being controlling, you are living this archetype unconsciously. You do not see yourself demanding that things be done your way. You see yourself offering helpful suggestions. You do not see yourself shutting down other people's ideas. You see yourself pointing out practical concerns. You do not see yourself micromanaging. You see yourself being detail-oriented. You do not see yourself dominating decisions. You see yourself naturally taking charge because no one else will. And all of these reframes allow you to maintain your self-image as someone who is not controlling, while everyone around you experiences you as exactly that. People in your life have tried to tell you, gently, directly, desperately. They have said you are too controlling, that you do not let them do things their way, that being around you feels suffocating, that you need to relax and let go, and you dismissed them. You got defensive. You explained that you are not controlling, you just want things done right. You accused them of being irresponsible, careless, lazy. You made it about their inadequacy rather than your need for control, and they stopped trying to tell you. They either learned to submit to let you control everything while silently resenting you, or they left, and you never understood why. You thought they could not handle being with someone competent. You thought they were intimidated by your standards. You thought they were the problem, but they were not. Your denial was. Your inability to see what they were experiencing. Your blind spot. The truth everyone sees is that you cannot let go. You cannot trust. You cannot tolerate things being done differently than you would do them. You correct people constantly. You redo their work. You take over projects. You make unilateral decisions and call them compromises. You steamroll conversations. You dominate planning. You cannot sit in the passenger seat without giving directions. You cannot watch someone cook without offering advice. You cannot let a partner choose a restaurant without weighing in on why your option is better. And all of this, every single controlling behavior, you justify as being helpful, being thorough, being responsible. But it is not. It is control, and everyone knows it. Except you. The work here is devastating because it requires admitting you are not who you think you are. You are not the flexible, easygoing person. You are the controlling one, the one people have to manage, the one whose need for control makes others feel small, incompetent, not trusted. And until you stop denying this, until you finally see what everyone else has been seeing, you will keep losing people. Keep wondering why relationships feel strained. Keep blaming others for not appreciating your help, when what they actually need is for you to stop helping and start trusting. The control you deny is the truth everyone sees, and seeing it is the only path to change. If this revealed your blind spot, subscribe to continue integrating what you've been denying. Comment which truth you deny. Your honesty might help someone else finally see their blind spot. If your heart recognized the neediness you reject, the truth that everyone sees you constantly seeking validation, approval and reassurance while you insist you are independent and self-sufficient, you have revealed the blind spot that is exhausting your relationships and preventing genuine intimacy. Everyone around you knows you need constant attention. They feel the pull. They experience your emotional hunger. They recognize the subtle and not so subtle ways you fish for compliments, manufacture situations where they have to rescue or reassure you, and become anxious or withdrawn when they do not give you the validation you crave. But you do not see it. You genuinely believe you are low maintenance, that you do not need anyone, that you handle everything yourself. And the gap between your self-perception and what people actually experience is creating relationships where others feel drained, obligated and resentful, while you feel perpetually unseen and unappreciated. You developed this blind spot because neediness was unacceptable in your formation. Maybe you had parents who could not handle your needs, and you learned that needing anything makes you a burden. Maybe you watched someone else be rejected for being needy and decided you would never be that person. Maybe you experienced abandonment and concluded that needing people is what caused them to leave. So you built an identity around independence, around not needing anyone, around being strong, capable, self-reliant. But here is what happened. The needs did not go away. They went underground. They became covert. You stopped asking directly for what you needed and started manipulating situations to get it indirectly. You stopped saying, "I need reassurance," and started creating drama that forces people to give you attention. You stopped admitting vulnerability and started playing victim so people would rescue you. And because these strategies are indirect, because they do not look like neediness to you, you can maintain the delusion that you are independent while everyone around you experiences you as the neediest person they know. In Jungian psychology, this is the shadow of the orphan or dependent archetype, the part of the psyche that feels abandoned, insecure, and desperate for connection. In its healthy form, this archetype allows genuine vulnerability and interdependence. In shadow, it becomes covert neediness disguised as independence. If you reject being needy, you are living this archetype unconsciously. You do not see yourself seeking constant validation. You see yourself sharing your achievements, hoping people will notice. You do not see yourself manufacturing crises. You see yourself having genuine emergencies that require support. You do not see yourself fishing for compliments. You see yourself being modest and waiting for others to affirm you. You do not see yourself becoming cold or withdrawn when you do not get attention. You see yourself protecting yourself from people who do not care, and all of these reframes allow you to deny your neediness while acting it out constantly. People in your life are exhausted by you. They love you. They want to support you. But they feel like nothing they give is ever enough. They compliment you, and you dismiss it or immediately point out a flaw. They reassure you, and within hours you need reassurance again. They show up for you and you create another crisis that requires them to prove their loyalty. They give attention, and the moment they turn to their own life, you become anxious, needy, or passive-aggressive. And when they finally tell you that you are exhausting, that you need too much, that they cannot keep filling a bottomless well, you are devastated. You feel attacked. You feel misunderstood. You insist you barely ask for anything, that you handle everything alone, that you are the least needy person you know. And they stop trying to explain it to you. They either resign themselves to being your emotional caretaker or they leave. And you never understand why. You thought they just could not handle being with someone who occasionally needs support. But it was not occasional. It was constant. And they were not rejecting your needs. They were rejecting the covert, manipulative, exhausting way you refuse to own your needs while demanding they meet them anyway. The truth everyone sees is that you are desperate for validation, for attention, for proof that you matter. You post on social media not to share but to see who responds. You tell stories designed to elicit sympathy or praise. You create problems so people will solve them for you. You become sick, stressed, or overwhelmed at convenient times that force others to step in. You cannot be happy for others without making it about you. You cannot let others have the spotlight without pulling focus. You cannot tolerate being alone without contacting someone. And all of this, every needy behavior, you justify as something else, as sharing, as needing help, as connecting. But it is not. It is neediness. And everyone knows it, except you. The work here is humiliating because it requires admitting that the independent, self-sufficient identity you cling to is a lie. You are needy, deeply, desperately needy. And until you stop rejecting this, until you own your needs directly, instead of manipulating people to meet them covertly, you will keep exhausting relationships, keep feeling unseen, keep blaming others for not giving enough when what they actually need is for you to stop performing independence and start being honest about your emotional hunger. The neediness you reject is the truth everyone sees, and owning it is the only path to getting your needs met in a way that creates connection instead of exhaustion. If your mind recognizes the arrogance you condemn, the truth that everyone sees you acting superior, dismissive, and condescending while you insist you are humble and open-minded, you have revealed the blind spot that is isolating you and preventing real connection. Everyone around you knows you think you are smarter, more evolved, more capable than they are. They feel your judgment. They experience your subtle and overt communications that you know better. They recognize the way you correct, lecture, and position yourself as the authority even when no one asked, but you do not see it. You genuinely believe you are humble, that you listen, that you treat everyone as equals. And the gap between your self-image and what people actually experience is creating relationships where others feel small, inadequate, and resentful, while you feel perpetually frustrated that no one appreciates your wisdom or takes your advice. You developed this blind spot because arrogance was the quality you judged most harshly. Maybe you had an arrogant parent and vowed never to be like them. Maybe you witnessed someone be rejected for their arrogance and decided you would be different. Maybe you built your identity around being humble, curious, a lifelong learner. So when arrogance started showing up in your behavior, when you started believing you were more insightful than others, when you started positioning yourself as superior, you could not see it, because seeing it would mean admitting you became the thing you most condemned. So you reframed it. You told yourself you are not arrogant, you are just informed, not condescending, just trying to help, not superior, just more aware. And you built justifications for every arrogant behavior that allow you to maintain your humble self-image, while everyone around you experiences you as insufferably arrogant. In Jungian terms, this is the inflation of the sage archetype, the part of the psyche that seeks wisdom and understanding. In its healthy form, this archetype brings insight and genuine learning. In shadow, it becomes intellectual arrogance, disguised as humility. If you condemn arrogance, you are living this archetype unconsciously. You do not see yourself acting superior. You see yourself sharing knowledge. You do not see yourself being condescending. You see yourself explaining things patiently. You do not see yourself dismissing others' perspectives. You see yourself pointing out logical flaws. You do not see yourself positioning yourself above others. You see yourself naturally taking the role of teacher because you have more information. And all of these reframes allow you to be arrogant while believing you are humble. People in your life feel small around you. They stop sharing their thoughts because you always have a correction, a better way, a deeper analysis that makes them feel stupid. They stop asking your opinion because you do not give an opinion, you give a lecture. They stop including you in conversations because you dominate them with your knowledge. They experience you as someone who cannot just listen, who always has to demonstrate that you know more, see more, understand more. And when they finally tell you that you come across as arrogant, that you make them feel inadequate, that being around you feels like being constantly judged and found lacking, you are shocked. You feel completely misunderstood. You insist you are the least arrogant person you know. You point to your humility, your openness, your willingness to learn. And they stop trying to explain it because you just demonstrated the exact arrogance they were describing by refusing to consider that maybe you are wrong about yourself. The truth everyone sees is that you believe you are better than most people, smarter, more aware, more evolved. You talk down to people while telling yourself you are being helpful. You correct people constantly while telling yourself you are improving communication. You dismiss perspectives different from yours while telling yourself you are defending truth. You name-drop books, concepts, theories to establish your intellectual superiority. You cannot let anyone else be the expert. You cannot admit when you do not know something. You cannot tolerate being wrong. You cannot sit in a conversation without positioning yourself as the most informed person in the room. And all of this, every arrogant behavior, you justify as something else, as sharing knowledge, as helping people understand, as raising the level of discourse, but it is not. It is arrogance, and everyone knows it, except you. The work here is brutal because it requires demolishing your intellectual identity. You are not the humble, open-minded learner you think you are. You are arrogant, condescending, insufferable at times, and until you stop condemning this quality while embodying it, until you finally see what everyone else experiences, you will keep alienating people. Keep feeling misunderstood, keep blaming others for being too sensitive or anti-intellectual, when what they actually need is for you to get off your high horse and relate to them as an equal instead of as someone you need to educate. The arrogance you condemn is the truth everyone sees, and humility is not thinking less of yourself, it is thinking of yourself less. And you do not do that. Not yet. If your spirit recognized the victimhood you refuse, the truth that everyone sees you blaming others, making excuses, and positioning yourself as powerless while you insist you take full responsibility for your life, you have revealed the blind spot that is keeping you stuck in patterns you claim to want to break. Everyone around you knows you play the victim. They hear it in every story you tell where you are never at fault. They see it in the way you explain every failure as something that happened to you rather than through your choices. They recognize your pattern of starting strong and then finding external reasons why you cannot continue, but you do not see it. You genuinely believe you take responsibility, that you are accountable, that you own your part. And the gap between your self-perception and what people experience is creating a life where you stay stuck while blaming circumstances, where you repeat patterns while insisting you are trying to change, and where people stop believing in your potential because they have watched you quit too many times while calling it bad luck. You developed this blind spot because victimhood was the quality you most despised. Maybe you grew up with someone who played victim constantly, and you vowed never to be like them. Maybe you pride yourself on being strong, independent, self-made. Maybe you built your identity around taking responsibility and refused to be seen as someone who makes excuses. So when victimhood started showing up in your behavior, when you started blaming others, when you started explaining your failures through external circumstances, you could not see it. Because seeing it would mean admitting you are the thing you most hate, so you reframed every victim behavior. You told yourself you are not making excuses, you are explaining context, not blaming others, just being realistic about obstacles, not refusing responsibility, just acknowledging that some things are beyond your control. And you built justifications that allow you to play victim while maintaining your identity as someone who takes radical responsibility. In Jungian psychology, this is the shadow of the victim archetype, the part of the psyche that feels powerless, wronged, and at the mercy of external forces. In its healthy form, this archetype allows us to acknowledge genuine harm and limitations. In shadow, it becomes chronic victimhood disguised as accountability. If you refuse victimhood, you are living this archetype unconsciously. You do not see yourself playing victim, you see yourself explaining why things did not work out. You do not see yourself blaming others. You see yourself being honest about their role in your problems. You do not see yourself as powerless. You see yourself as someone dealing with unusually difficult circumstances. You do not see yourself making excuses. You see yourself providing valid reasons that anyone would understand, and all of these reframes allow you to be a victim while believing you are empowered. People in your life are tired of your stories. Every single one has the same structure. You were trying, you were making progress, you were on the right path, and then something external happened. Someone let you down. Circumstances changed, bad luck struck, and now you cannot continue, and it is not your fault. It never is. You have an explanation for every failure that positions you as the person who tried but was defeated by forces beyond your control. Your boss was unreasonable, your partner was unsupportive, your family was toxic, the economy was bad, the timing was wrong. Other people had advantages you did not have, and on, a never-ending list of reasons why you are not where you want to be that all have one thing in common. None of them are your responsibility. And when people finally tell you that you always have an excuse, that you never actually take ownership, that you are playing victim, you feel attacked, you feel unseen. You insist you are not playing victim, that these are legitimate obstacles, that you are just being realistic, and they stop trying to help you because they realize you do not actually want to change. You want to stay stuck while being validated for your struggle. The truth everyone sees is that you use circumstances as an excuse to avoid accountability. You quit jobs and blame the company. You end relationships and blame the partner. You start projects and abandon them, blaming lack of time, resources, support. You talk about your dreams but never actually pursue them because you are waiting for conditions to be perfect. You want transformation, but you are not willing to do what transformation requires. And when anyone suggests that maybe the common denominator in all your failures is you, that maybe you have more power than you admit, that maybe you are choosing victimhood, you shut down. You defend. You list all the ways they do not understand your unique struggles, and you continue the pattern. Stuck, blaming, playing victim, while insisting you are not. The work here is confronting the reality that you are not as powerless as you claim, that most of your obstacles are either created by your choices or are obstacles everyone faces that others somehow overcome, that your explanations are excuses, that your context is deflection, that you are using victimhood to avoid the terrifying responsibility of admitting that if your life is not what you want, it is because of the choices you make, not the circumstances you face. The victimhood you refuse is the truth everyone sees. And taking responsibility does not mean blaming yourself. It means acknowledging your power to choose differently. Starting now. Now that you have seen which truth everyone sees about you except yourself, now that you have been confronted with the blind spot you have been defending against for years, it is time to understand what Carl Jung discovered that changes everything about self-awareness and transformation. The reason you cannot see what everyone else sees is not because you are stupid or lacking insight. It is because your psychological survival depends on not seeing it. You built your entire identity in opposition to this quality. You made it the enemy. You decided it was unacceptable, and then, inevitably, it showed up in your behavior anyway. But instead of integrating it, instead of acknowledging that you contain this quality you despise, you pushed it into shadow where it could act without your awareness. And now you are living a lie. Everyone sees the truth. Everyone experiences your controlling behavior, your neediness, your arrogance, your victimhood. Everyone except you, and that blind spot is destroying every relationship, every opportunity, every chance at genuine growth. Jung spent his career proving that we are not who we think we are, that self-perception is notoriously unreliable, that the image we have of ourselves is often radically different from the reality others experience. He called this the persona-shadow split. The persona is who we think we are, the mask we present to the world and, more importantly, to ourselves. The shadow is who we actually are, the parts we cannot accept, so we deny, project, or act out unconsciously, and the gap between persona and shadow is where all psychological suffering lives, because we cannot integrate what we cannot see. We cannot change what we refuse to acknowledge. We cannot grow beyond patterns we insist we do not have. The feedback from others, the truth they see that we deny, is not an attack on our character. It is a mirror, a reflection of the shadow we have been hiding from ourselves. And until we stop defending, stop explaining, stop insisting they are wrong, we cannot grow. This is why Jung said that the most important psychological work is making the unconscious conscious, bringing shadow into light, acknowledging what we have been denying. And the pathway to this integration is other people. They see what we cannot see. They experience what we refuse to acknowledge. They know the truth about us that we are working desperately to hide. And when they tell us, when they offer feedback, when they say, "You are controlling," or "You are needy," or "You are arrogant," or "You play victim," we have two choices. We can defend, explain, insist they are wrong, continue living in the blind spot, or we can listen. Consider. Ask ourselves the hardest question. What if they are right? What if I am not who I think I am? What if the quality I most despise in others is actually alive in me? That question is devastating because answering it honestly means dismantling your self-image, means admitting you are not the flexible person you are controlling, not the independent person you are needy, not the humble person you are arrogant, not the accountable person you play victim. And that admission feels like death. But it is not death, it is birth. The birth of self-awareness, the birth of authenticity, the birth of the capacity to finally change, because you cannot change what you deny. You can only change what you acknowledge. The controlling person who admits they are controlling can learn to let go. The needy person who owns their neediness can learn to meet their needs directly. The arrogant person who sees their arrogance can cultivate genuine humility. The victim who acknowledges their victimhood can reclaim their power. But none of this is possible while you are still defending against the truth, while you are still insisting that everyone else is wrong about you, while you are still living in the blind spot. Jung believed that psychological maturity is not about becoming perfect, it is about becoming whole, and wholeness requires integrating everything we rejected, including the qualities we most despise. You do not become non-controlling by denying you are controlling. You become non-controlling by acknowledging you are controlling and choosing differently. You do not become genuinely independent by rejecting your neediness. You become genuinely interdependent by owning your needs and expressing them directly. You do not become humble by insisting you are not arrogant. You become humble by seeing your arrogance and choosing to listen instead of lecture. You do not become empowered by refusing victimhood. You become empowered by acknowledging when you play victim and taking responsibility for your choices. This is the paradox of shadow work. You do not overcome the shadow by fighting it. You overcome it by integrating it, by saying, yes, this is part of me, and now that I see it, I can work with it instead of being controlled by it unconsciously. The truth everyone sees about you is not your enemy. It is your teacher. It is showing you exactly where your blind spot is, exactly what you need to integrate, exactly what is preventing your growth. And the moment you stop defending and start listening, the moment you acknowledge what they see, is the moment transformation becomes possible. Not comfortable, not easy, but possible. And that possibility is worth every bit of discomfort the truth requires. So now you know the truth everyone sees about you except yourself. You have been confronted with the blind spot you have been defending against, and now comes the hardest part. Not understanding intellectually, but changing behaviorally, because awareness without action is just sophisticated avoidance. You can see your blind spot and still act it out. You can acknowledge you are controlling, needy, arrogant, or play victim, and still continue those behaviors while calling it progress, because at least now you know. But knowing is not enough. Integration requires practice. Daily, uncomfortable, ego-destroying practice. Here is how you actually change the pattern instead of just becoming aware of it. If your blind spot is control, your practice is letting go of one thing per day. Not everything at once. Not surrendering all control and watching your life fall apart to prove that you needed to control it, but one thing. One decision you let someone else make. One project you do not micromanage. One outcome you do not try to determine. Start small. Let your partner choose the restaurant without weighing in. Let your colleague handle the project their way, even if you would do it differently. Let your child figure something out instead of fixing it for them. And when the anxiety floods in, when every cell in your body screams that letting go means disaster, breathe through it. Notice the fear. Notice the belief that only your way works. And let go anyway. See what happens. Most of the time, things work out fine. Sometimes differently than you would have done it. But fine. And slowly, through repeated experience of letting go and surviving it, you rewire the belief that control equals safety. You learn that trust is possible, that others are competent, that the world does not fall apart when you are not managing it. If your blind spot is neediness, your practice is asking directly for what you need. No more covert manipulations, no more creating situations that force people to give you attention. No more fishing for compliments or manufacturing crises. When you need reassurance, say, I need reassurance. When you need attention, say, I need your attention. When you need validation, say, I need to hear that I matter to you. This will feel vulnerable and terrifying. It will feel like admitting weakness, but here is the truth. People already know you are needy. Your covert strategies are not as subtle as you think. All you are doing by not asking directly is making people feel manipulated instead of trusted. When you ask directly, you give people the chance to give you what you actually need in a way that creates connection instead of exhaustion. Some people will say no, and that is okay. A no to a direct request is information. A no to a covert manipulation is betrayal. Direct needs create authentic relationships. Covert needs create resentful ones. If your blind spot is arrogance, your practice is listening without correcting. This will be excruciating for you. Someone will share a thought, and you will immediately see what is wrong with it, how it could be deeper, what they are missing. And instead of sharing your superior analysis, you will stay silent, you will listen, you will ask questions instead of lecturing. You will say, tell me more, instead of actually. You will let them be the expert in their own experience, instead of positioning yourself as the authority. And when the urge to demonstrate your knowledge overwhelms you, when you cannot stand being quiet while someone is wrong on the internet or in conversation, pause. Ask yourself, is my need to correct them about truth or about proving I am smarter? Most of the time, it is about proving, and proving is the opposite of connecting. Humility is not thinking you know nothing. It is knowing you do not know everything, and being comfortable with that. Practice not knowing, practice letting others teach you. Practice being wrong, practice saying, I did not think of it that way. These small practices dismantle arrogance brick by brick. If your blind spot is victimhood, your practice is ending every complaint with an action. Every time you catch yourself explaining why something did not work out, why you are stuck, why you cannot move forward, pause. Acknowledge the obstacle, and then ask, what is one thing I can do about this? Not what someone else should do, not what would have to change externally for this to be possible. What can you do right now, with the resources you have, in the circumstances that actually exist? And then do it. Stop waiting for perfect conditions. Stop waiting for someone to save you. Stop explaining why you cannot and start doing what you can, even if it is small, even if it is imperfect, even if it does not solve the whole problem. Action breaks victimhood. Explanation reinforces it. Every time you choose action over explanation, you reclaim your power. And slowly, through repeated choices to act instead of complain, you become someone who creates their life instead of someone life happens to. For all blind spots, the universal practice is listening to feedback without defending. When someone tells you that you are being controlling, needy, arrogant, or playing victim, do not explain why they are wrong. Do not justify your behavior. Do not make them feel stupid for their perception. Just say, thank you for telling me. And sit with it. Consider it. Ask yourself if there is any truth in it. Most of the time there is. And that feedback, however uncomfortable, is the most valuable gift anyone can give you, because they are showing you what you cannot see. And seeing it is the only path to change. You have walked through something today that most people never face. You have looked directly at the truth everyone sees about you except yourself, and considered the devastating possibility that they are right, that you are not who you think you are, that the blind spot you have been defending is real, visible, and destroying your relationships and your growth. This is not comfortable. This is not validating. This is not the feedback that confirms your innocence or excuses your behavior. This is the truth. And truth, however painful, is the only foundation on which real transformation can be built. Because Carl Jung proved beyond doubt that we cannot change what we cannot see. And what we refuse to see about ourselves, others see clearly. And they are waiting for us to finally stop defending and start integrating. Waiting for us to acknowledge that maybe the common feedback we get is not everyone else being wrong. Maybe it is us being blind. The truth everyone sees about you is not an attack. It is information. Information about how you are actually showing up in the world versus how you think you are showing up. The gap between those two versions is your blind spot. And that blind spot is costing you. Costing you relationships with people who cannot tolerate your controlling behavior, your neediness, your arrogance, or your victimhood. Costing you opportunities because people who see your blind spot stop trusting you, stop collaborating with you, stop believing you will change. costing you growth because you cannot transcend patterns you insist you do not have. The controlling person who denies being controlling stays controlling. The needy person who rejects neediness stays covertly manipulative. The arrogant person who cannot see their arrogance stays insufferable. The victim who refuses victimhood stays stuck. And all of them wonder why life is not working, why people keep leaving, why they cannot break patterns they swear they are working on. Jung taught that individuation, the process of becoming fully yourself, requires integrating the shadow, and the shadow is everything you cannot accept about yourself. The qualities you despise, the behaviors you deny, the truth others see that you refuse. Integration is not about becoming perfect. It is about becoming whole, about acknowledging that you contain everything human, including the parts you decided were unacceptable. You are controlling and flexible, needy and independent, arrogant and humble, powerful and victimized, all of it. Not one or the other, both. And until you stop identifying solely with one side while projecting the other into shadow, you cannot be whole. You can only be fragmented, living a persona that everyone sees through, fighting to maintain an image that is exhausting to perform and impossible to sustain. Which truth do people see about you that you refuse to see? Are you controlling, needy, arrogant, playing victim? And will you continue to defend, explain, insist they are all wrong about you? Or will you finally, courageously, consider that maybe they are right? That maybe you have been living in a blind spot so massive that your entire self-image is built on denial? This is the hardest question you will ever answer, because answering it honestly means dismantling who you think you are. Means admitting you are not the person you have been presenting to yourself and others. Means facing the humiliation of realizing that everyone knew something about you that you did not know about yourself, and that is devastating. But it is also liberating, because the moment you stop defending the false self, you can start building the true self, the self that is aware, that owns its shadow, that can change because it acknowledges what needs changing. Share which truth you recognized in the comments. Are you the control you deny, the neediness you reject, the arrogance you condemn, the victimhood you refuse? Your honesty might give someone else permission to finally see their blind spot. Subscribe for more on shadow integration, self-awareness, and the courage to see what everyone else has been seeing. 2 more videos are appearing now. Choose one to continue this work. Until we meet again, remember this. The truth everyone sees about you except yourself is not your enemy. It is your teacher. It is showing you exactly where your blind spot is, exactly what you need to integrate, exactly what is preventing your growth. And the feedback you have been dismissing for years is actually the most valuable information you will ever receive, because it is showing you what you cannot see. And seeing it is the beginning of everything, the beginning of change, the beginning of authenticity, the beginning of relationships built on truth instead of performance, the beginning of becoming who you actually are instead of who you think you should be. Stop defending, start listening, stop explaining, start acknowledging, stop insisting they are wrong, start considering they might be right. The truth everyone sees is waiting for you to finally see it too. And once you do, once you stop being the last person to know who you actually are, transformation is not just possible, it is inevitable. See yourself, finally, fully, honestly, and watch every